Journalist Steve Rosen looks back at rookie mistakes. I mean, I have a problem sometimes listening to my old interviews where I talk over the artist too many times. I'm nervous. I ask stupid questions, but it makes for good stories, really. Steve Rosen began as an unpaid writer, as you'll hear in this clip, backpacking throughout Europe and getting interviews from people that he thought he didn't deserve. Hijinks, missteps, and a lot more with journalist Steve Rosen, who's just released a new book called Tone Chaser. It's a book on his relationship going back to 77 with Eddie Van Halen, professionally and personally. But there's lots of other stories in there. Backpacking and getting early success and missteps with Steve Rosen on Rock History Music.
I did my first interview, Joe Cocker. Don't even ask me. Joe Cocker, 73. I recorded over it.
What do you remember from the Joe Cocker interview?
Oh God. So, mentioned earlier, I'd written for my high school newspaper. That next summer, or maybe 2 summers later, I think it was 70. I graduated in 71. So I think 72. My buddy and I go to Europe and hitchhike around. So we hitchhike around Europe and the UK for 3 months. Doing the Jack Kerouac thing, on the road. And that was great fun. One of the first little local newspapers I mentioned to you that I started writing for was a little rag called the LA Star. The LA Star is where you put a quarter in the machine, on the side of the curb, and you'd pull up the door and you'd pull out one issue and it would close. That's where you'd find them. Well, you bought the LA Star, which is kind of a softcore porn newspaper thing, because you would turn to the back page and look at the massage ads, right? You weren't buying the LA Star to glean any true insights into the musicians' mindsets. So I remember sending this guy a couple live reviews, and I remember them clearly. T-Rex at the Palladium, which is like a really cool venue down on Sunset Boulevard, and West Bruce and Lane. I was a huge Jack Bruce and Leslie West fan. And he ran both reviews. So I remember getting in contact with him, calling him and said, "Hey, Mark Yandell, man, thank you for printing my reviews." I mean, no money, of course. I mean, at that point, I would have paid him, right? No money exchanged hands, but I had a byline, and I just thought, my God, this is so great. I told him, "Listen, man, I'm going to Europe and the UK, so I won't be around for 3 months." And he said, "Well, why don't you be like our foreign correspondent? Go over there, do some interviews, and send them back to me." I said, "Well, yeah, that'd be great, except I don't know anybody. I mean, you're the only person I know." He goes, "I have a complete Rolodex of every publicist and manager in the UK." How he ever got this, I have no idea. I do not know. But he did. He had names. He gave me all these names. One of the names on there was Max Clifford, publicist for Joe Cocker. So my buddy and I have come back from Europe, and we're now in London. I mean, we were sleeping outside, and we slept in Hyde Park. I mean, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. So we'd wake up, have a cup of coffee, and try to get cleaned up a little bit, and then I'd go find one of the red phone booths, drop in my pence or whatever it is, and I'm dialing Max Clifford, scared, terrified. I mean, what do I say to him? He's going to laugh me off the phone. I go, the pig-headedness of youth. I mean, what's the worst he can say? "I don't know you. I'm sorry, I'm busy." So I go, "Hi, can I speak to Max Clifford?" And he goes, "Oh, just a minute, and he comes down and goes, 'Hi, this is Max.' I go, 'Hi, Max, my name is Steve Rosen, and I got your name from Mark Yandell, and I'm a journalist over here from LA, and I'm really trying to do interviews for LA Star. I'm just wondering, if I could do anything." He goes, "Well, I've got Joe Cocker here tomorrow. Do you want to come interview him?" And I go, "You're Joe?" I go, "Yes, that would be amazing." the first interview I've ever done in my life is Joe Cocker. We go to his office, and he's got this amazing office, and he walks me back into the little conference room, and there's Joe Cocker sitting at the table. I'm going, oh my God, it was everything I could do, man, not to just turn and walk out. So, so I sit down, with my piece of garbage $5 cassette player, my $2 Radio Shack microphone. I don't think I had prepared any questions. I mean, Joe Cocker, I love Joe Cocker. I love the Grease Band. I mean, I thought he was an amazing artist, So I asked him something about, I think, doing With a Little Help from My Friends, the Beatles song. Jimmy Page is on there, and B.J. Wilson from Procol Harum is playing drums, I mean, it's one of the greatest covers ever done. So we start there, and he just starts talking, and I can't remember what else I asked him, probably something about Woodstock, or we get done, and I'm going to write the story the next day or something, and mail it back. And somehow I had we were staying like at a bed and breakfast, like a room in one of these quaint little English homes, I think we had our own little, like kitchen, with the little burner thing, and I think I somehow had a typewriter. I don't know if the person who owned the house had a typewriter. I had gotten one somewhere. I don't know where. So I was, going to write the story the next day. But earlier that next day, I actually had an interview set up with, I think it was a band called Smith, Perkins and Smith. They were one of these prototypical English bands at the time. They were actually a pretty amazing band. And one of the other publicists said, yeah, we got Smith, Perkins and Smith. And I think they had an album that they gave to me, and maybe I listened to the album or came to the office to listen to the album, or they had a press release. So I go and listen to interview Smith, Perkins and Smith, and, I have my cassette. So I think nothing of it, and I put it in, and I record Smith, Perkins and Smith. And I would like to say that I didn't know what I was doing, but I realized I'm recording over the Joe Cocker interview, and I haven't even written the story, and I couldn't have done anything more stupid. So I had to like recreate the interview from memory, So God bless you, Joe. Maybe the quotes weren't exact, because I figured, how many interviews am I going to really do in my life? I mean, yes, I wanted a career. I wanted that, but I talked earlier, man. I mean, you never knew. I mean, maybe, I do a Joe Cocker and a Smith, Perkins, Smith interview. That's all I ever do. So I recorded over it, and then I have to say I did it again. A couple of days later, I interviewed a band called Gentle Giant, the prog band. Really amazing band.
The Shulman Brothers.
I interviewed over them, and this is like, I think, their first record. It could have been, so this is like it could have been a very important interview, and I recorded over. I do want to tell you that the next day or 2 days later, I met the publicist for Paul McCartney, Tony Brainsby. This guy was so nice. He let my buddy and me, when we told him we were like sleeping outdoors and stuff, he said, oh, why don't you come and you can sleep in the office? This guy allowed us to sleep in his office. He had like an office, like a little bedroom area, We just had to be up and out before they, started business. But that's what kind of person he was. He said, listen, Paul McCartney is playing in Birmingham. You want to go interview Paul McCartney? So, I go, yes, Tony, I'd love to interview Paul McCartney. So we take the train from London to Birmingham, which is about 100 miles. And we see Wings, which was amazing. This is that tour they did. I think they called it the University Tour, where they would roll up in this painted bus, and they'd say, hey, we're, Bill and the, Home Wreckers. And nobody knew who they were until they go on stage, and it's McCartney, So seeing him perform was amazing. I'd never seen the Beatles. And then afterwards, it was like a little press conference. There was probably like, I don't know, half a dozen writers. all these amazing writers whose names I knew from Melody Maker and NME. You know, I mean, I'm in this room with these. I mean, these are gods to me. I mean, I've seen their bylines. You know, these are guys who've been around. They'd interviewed everybody. You know, and I'm there. You know, my little LA star, and I'm terrified. You know, just being in the room with them. You know? And I asked them one question. And what question do you ask Paul McCartney if you don't know what else to ask? Are the Beatles going to ever get back together? And he gave me some kind response. Yeah, you know, if we can start talking to each other again, you know, because it's only really, I want to think it's only like a year and a half after, you know, the Beatles kind of broke up. So it's not like a lot of time has passed. But yeah, so that's my Joe Cocker convoluted recording over the interview. Oh God, it makes me.
Racer is the brand new book by Steve Rosen, who knew Eddie Van Halen going way back to 1977. It's a great book on so many different artists. Ronnie Montrose, an interesting run-in with him. Paul McCartney, Joe Cocker, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, most notably Bon Scott, Ritchie Blackmore. Now that's a colorful story. But mostly Eddie Van Halen, who he knew, like I said, going way, way back before the first Van Halen album was ever released. There's so much inside information in this book. It's one of my favorite books that I've read in a long time, and I really enjoy talking to Steve. His stories are magical, really. There'll be links in the description where you can pick it up. Remember, if you want to contribute to the channel, if you want to make a donation, there are links on every one of our videos to PayPal. You can make a PayPal donation, you can join our Patreon, get early access to all our videos. But remember, subscribe to the channel, like our videos, comment on them, and share them on social media. This is John Beaudin. More from Steve Rosen coming up in the next 2-3 days. This is Rock History Music. Take care.